What is up, all you minties? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and join me today for an advanced look at the history of the Marvel Universe Treasury Edition from Marvel Comics. So, please stay tuned. And welcome back, Minties. Now, before I get started, I'd like to say a thank you to David Gabriel and the folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this book. This book will be available at comic book stores and places like cheapgraphicnovels.com on March 11th. By the way, this is the standard edition cover. There is a variant cover by the artist Javier Rodriguez, and that will only be available at comic book stores and places like cheapgraphicnovels.com. So keep that in mind. This is the standard one. This one won't be available everywhere, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, wherever you get your collected editions. Now, before I get started, something that a lot of people have asked me to do, and I don't ever mind doing, is a size comparison. Here we have a standard size trade paperback compared to the size of this Treasury Edition. Here is a Marvel Omnibus compared to the size of the Treasury Edition. One of my favorite things about these Treasury Editions is the different sizes. So this one looks to be identical to the size of the Silver Surfer Black Treasury Edition. Looks like it's the same height. Of course, it's a little bit thicker. I'll talk about what it collects in here. But it also has that same feel, that soft cover, hardcover feel to it that other Treasury Editions have, such as the Fantastic Four Treasury Edition, which is just as tall, but just a little bit longer than the History of the Marvel Universe and X-Men Grand Design. Just like Fantastic Four, a little bit longer and just as tall. So let's take a closer look at the book. Here is the spine. I'm sure you could probably see it when I was comparing it to the Silver Surfer Black. And then the back. The book retails for $29.99. Now, let's crack this open and talk about it. Again, it has that soft hardcover. Here is the bookend pages and the history of the Marvel Universe. Written by Mark Waid, drawn by Javier Rodriguez, who also does the colors, and then Alvaro Lopez does the inks on the book. The covers, by the way, are done by Steve McNiven. And it looks so weird because I didn't realize it was him. I thought it was Tom Grumet, who is also a comic book artist and has been around for many years. But it looks like his style has changed, and I don't know if that's because his style has actually changed or because he's being inked by Mark Farmer. So the story is really simple. It is the story at the end of time featuring Galactus and Franklin Richards. Galactus and Franklin Richards are both about to enter a new universe. They're about to be reborn. But before that can happen, Franklin Richards wants to remember everything from the beginning, from the creation of the universe. So Galactus tells the story of the Marvel Universe. It is done in chronological order from the first mention of the Big Bang all the way up until, well, past where we are now. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but rest assured there will be spoilers because this covers everything in chronological order. From, like I said, the creation all the way into past the 2099 universe. And what I mean by chronological order is that throughout the many years of Marvel Comics, there have been different origins and different characters that have talked about coming from the past. For example, we'll use Apocalypse from X-Men. We knew that he was once in Egypt. We knew that he was a slave, but that was based on a miniseries called Rise of Apocalypse, and then it's also been hinted at through the issues of X-Factor and X-Men. So what they do is, in chronological order, they start you there from those ancient times in Egypt, but we also know that during that time, Ramatut was in charge, and then he became one of the villains for the Fantastic Four. So that is what he is able to do and simplify for new readers. And I think that is what I enjoyed the most about this, is that he is able to take this complexity of all these origin stories and all the history and just simplify it. I mean, so this is Avengers, like the original Avengers lineup. According to Jason Aaron in the recent issues of Avengers, he said that Odin was one of the original Avengers that fought off all these evil in the past, along with Ghost Rider and Iron Fist, Agamotto, and then there was a Phoenix as well, and then a Starbrand and a Black Panther. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So even retcons that have come out in the recent years, like the Illuminati, he throws in here. At the end of each chapter, there's 6 comics in here collected all together. along with another cool thing here towards the end. There are all the variants back here. And then, of course, the cover to the next issue, which this one is issue 2. Here we have the story of Irene Adler and Raven Darkholme, otherwise known as Destiny and Mystique. Very cool that he just lays it out there, you know, hinted at for many, many decades. And he, in one page, he's able to say, nope, they were a couple, and this is what happened. The coming of the golden age of Marvel. So it starts off at the beginning, like I said, with the creation of the universe, the creation of the Infinity Gems, and then it moves on to the Age of Marvel. We'll go a little bit through here. I could not put this thing down. I know it's not a review, but I strongly recommend reading this for anybody that just wants to catch up on the history of Marvel. And then it'd be kind of cool to look at the back, because there's an appendix in the back telling you where all this stuff was found originally. I remember when I was young and I'd go over to my friend Andrew's house, and Andrew now helps me do the show, and his dad was a history major. His dad was the type of person that if you just threw a year at him, he could tell you what was going on in China, as well as what was going on in Japan and what was going on in Europe. So I always thought that was pretty cool that he was able to do that. This does the same thing, because that's what Mark Waid is able to do. He could tell you what was going on during the Secret Wars and during Spider-Man's life. When Power Pack originally came out was around the time the Cloak and Dagger originally came out, and then the Avengers West Coast was formed. And I thought that is so cool, because this is somebody that understands the entire Marvel Universe and is able to condense it in one page. Like we are talking about right here, Operation Galactic Storm, the Executioner song, and Maximum Carnage, and the wedding of Cyclops and Phoenix, all in 2 pages. All because it happened around, 2 or 3 years apart from each other. But the fact that he's able to simplify it and just put it into 2 pages, that is a huge feat. Not a lot of writers can do that. As a matter of fact, I've always said there's only about 5 or 6 writers that I know of that could do something like this, that could take the history of Marvel and condense it into one 6-issue miniseries. Mark Waid is definitely one of them. Peter David, Kurt Busiek, Roy Thomas, Fabian Nicieza, just to name a few, but they chose the right person for this project. One of the things you're noticing as I'm flipping through here, I'm sure, is this beautiful artwork by Javier Rodriguez and inks by Alvaro Lopez. Now, I find their art style really interesting. Well, mainly because Rodriguez does his own colors, but they have this Ed McGuinness type of art style. However, during some of the scenes, especially when we look at the beginning, it's almost like a Kirby-ish artwork. So I wonder if he's one of these very talented artists that is able to mimic other people's artwork. Kind of like J.H. Williams when he was doing the Seven Soldiers. Because there's a lot in here that kind of looks like Ron Lim. It kind of looks like George Perez. It looks like Stuart Eminem. It looks like Jim Lee. And I think that's very awesome, an artist that can mimic that style. Because you're talking about, not just, yes, physically decades of Marvel Comics, but in the span of the universe of Marvel Comics, we are talking millions of years apart. So the beginning almost looks a lot different than the characters from the future. So 6-issue miniseries, we get all the way into the new age of Marvel, right here as Galactus' body is falling apart, and Franklin Richards, the most powerful mutant, which they do talk about here. By the way, this I found this interesting because if you read Jonathan Hickman's run of Fantastic Four, you know where this story originated from between Galactus and Franklin Richards. So we get into the new age of Marvel with the crossovers like Infinity and Original Sin, and the IVX, the Inhumans versus X-Men. But what I was going to say is that, here, we'll flip back a little bit because I don't want to spoil the things you haven't read. And it is hard not to spoil because when you read this, you might be spoiled on something you didn't know about, like going on in Avengers, and you were waiting to read Avengers. But if you're curious at all about the Marvel Universe and how it works together and what was happening in New York and Atlantis in the same year, this is the book for you. DC tried something similar back in the 80s with the history of the DC Universe right after Crisis on Infinite Earths. However, that was done not in this chronological kind of way. That was by Marv Wolfman. Then years later, right after Infinite Crisis, they did it again with, there were backup stories in the 52 miniseries, or I guess maxi series, since there were 52 issues. But each one of them just had an origin for a character. This is literally not only doing origins of characters, but also origins of the entire Marvel Universe. Now, the back is really cool. As I was flipping to the back here, by the way, that last line, the final line of this stupid book made me tear up a little bit, just because it reminded me of how long these characters have been a part of my life. Now, back here is something really awesome that I wish that they had kept in Grand Design, X-Men Grand Design, and that is the annotations. This is every single issue where all these original stories came from. So when he's talking about the birth of the Watchers, it came from Tales of Suspense 53, Fantastic Four 544. And then when he talks about the Illuminati and all that stuff, that comes from Avengers from Bendis. There's the Beast, when he was talking about the birth of the Beast, that was from Elektra. So if you've read Marvel Comics for a long time, you're in for a freaking treat, because this is everything that you might remember. You might find yourself saying, oh, I forgot about that. That's right, that was happening at the same time this was going on in Fantastic Four. And even if you're new to Marvel Comics, this is the best way to catch up on the history as far as the comics universe. There is no better, and I can't think of another book like this out there that can just summarize everything going on from the beginning of the Marvel Comics up until now. And I know I still never review these books, but I could not put this stupid book down. It is beautiful. The presentation is gorgeous. I love the fact that it's a Treasury Edition. And honestly, I don't know if I would have liked the hardcover. I kind of like this look. It's unique. It stands out. And I know my bookshelf hates books like this, but I love it. The book, by the way, has 232 pages. You saw where those variants are. Let's look in the back here. And here's a couple more variants. Now let's look at the binding really quick. The book, by the way, is glued binding. However, I'm sure you could tell as I was flipping through here that because of that flex right there in the inner spine, it folds over really nice. Like, for example, this is a splash page here. And there's quite a few of them. Here's one from the very beginning, as you could see. It doesn't stay shut, but that's because of the flimsy hardback here. The pseudo hardback, I guess. You can tell there's a little bit of gutter loss here towards the beginning, but like I said, that's mainly due to the glued binding. Very, very minimal. As you get to the middle pages, you can see here how well it stays down. And here's another example of a splash page. This one's towards the end of the book. Very minimal gutter loss. By the way, the paper quality is this thick, glossy paper, very similar to the one found in the Silver Surfer Black Treasury Edition. Now, if you're interested in purchasing this book when it comes out on March 11th, you can purchase it from cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off the cover price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on packaging your books so they arrive safely and in excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. And check out their bargain bin for even greater deals up to 90% off cover price. And for you minties, Cheap Graphic Novels is running a special promotion. If you're a first-time customer, let them know you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. Now, this is only for U.S. customers. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discounts, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content of the book, the build of the book, and the page count. Please let me know in those comments down below if you're picking this up. This was one of my most anticipated collected editions in the month of March, and it is finally here, and I cannot recommend this one enough. It was a phenomenal read and an awesome experience, and I can't wait for you all to let me know what you thought of it, or unless you've already read it in the single issue format. Please don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button. Let me know if you have any other questions. Leave those comments down below. Ring that bell for notifications. We can be found on Patreon and Redbubble, and all of that information is in the description down below. And remember, if it's classy and cool, it must be Near Mint.